In our chicken yard, in our front yard, we've got a couple of these cattle panel high tunnels. Folks will be familiar with this one, which is a 4-panel cattle panel tunnel that is for our chickens' winter compost run. And maybe less familiar, but some of you would know about this one. This was the first one I built in here, which is actually a high tunnel that's skinned all the way around and can be closed down for the winter. And this is aligned just downslope of a ton of compost production that's happening here, and is actually laid out on a swale. So when we get a heavy rain, so yesterday and the day before we got a huge amount of rain, it fills in the walkway with compost tea. A little bit gross, but also pretty phenomenal. But the reason I wanted to do this video, so I haven't been in here in at least a month, and here's what's growing in here. And this is the part that might be a little hard to believe, but with the exception of the fig on the far end, 100% of the plants that are in here are all volunteers that have not been watered, even though we've seen almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit one day because of this wick watering system from down below. Let me explain what I'm up to. My main reason to want to get into this space is, well, first of all, to see what the tomatoes are up to, what kinds they are, when we might need to start harvesting, but more importantly, what's popping with that fig over there. It looks like it's got some fruit. We'll take a look in a moment. And so the first pass was to just bushwhack my way through. I needed to get access, and you can see I'm wearing my rubber boots because that is, in one stroke you can call it a cesspool, and in another you can call it the most insanely nutrient dense compost tea. Choice is yours. Nice subjective choice. But so anyway, I pruned out some plants that were in here, some random cucurbits that were growing, and now I can get to the far end. And certainly these tomatoes could have been thinned, could have pinched the internodes, could have trellised, all these different things. I think we'll just let them grow. We'll prune them back as needed so we can have access through here. This water will go away after a day or two once the beds soak everything in, so it'll be easier to access. And it's an insane mess, but for zero planting and zero watering, it's pretty phenomenal. These tomatoes are incredibly healthy looking, and so they're being fed a continual supply of wicked super nutrient compost tea from down below. And so for in a high tunnel, it's pretty special that that's working. Here, this fig, we put this in a few years ago. I wish I knew what type it was. I think it's a Chicago Hardy, but we're in zone 5B, and we do close the far window and the door in the winter, so it's a bit warmer in here. But there's no heater or compost heating system, and it overwintered well enough that it's already starting to form some figs. There's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 that are that size, and then I was just looking at these little nodes, and it looks like it's starting to form up a ton more. So if this works well and the figs ripen nicely, we may be offering fig cuttings soon enough. So it's in a high tunnel, but it has had no winter protection. You can see where some dieback happened, but overall pretty vibrant and alive. And I can see where lots of birds are sitting on there pooping on the leaves, but they're probably also keeping whatever pests may bother the figs or tomatoes down to next to nothing. If this channel of water really bothered me, I could certainly come on this far side here where the door is and dig down quite a bit, and that would allow it to release. In fact, it goes down slope from here, and all that extra water would flow past this berm of hazelnuts and currants and all sorts of plums and things like that. But for now, because we had a dry spell and the surface of the soil is pretty dry, so wherever seeds didn't start in the spring and they haven't had a chance to put their roots deeper down, it's a bit drier on the surface. So I may bring a bilge pump in here and a little solar panel and grab some of this muck nutrient water and just fully saturate from the top down, sow it out to some cucumbers and basil and the like. But we might just also let these tomatoes flop this way and fill the rest of the space out. But since I have boots and I don't come in here more than, well, so far 2 or 3 times this growing season, the water in the bottom is actually a real benefit for us right now. It's something to consider if you have a high tunnel, if you have a landscape where water's moving through it, to think about laying out your high tunnels in such a way that when water's moving through your landscape, can it be routed through the center of the space can you be storing compost or comfrey leaves and the like upslope so it picks up nutrient and lets it sit. And so these raised beds can now take the next few days at their leisure and draw it all the way through that soil. It's a pretty haggard and ragamuffin looking high tunnel, to be sure. The poly could have been drawn a lot more taut. It's a little floppy. The shape overall is a little bumpy and lumpy. You can see the doors have been, certainly could have been made in a more exquisite way. My ventilation system could have been a lot more elegant, other than just pulling some staples and letting it flop. But all that being said, the basic idea of having a high tunnel is about growing food, having season extension, and so it is doing that majestically when I factor in the amount of effort per plant. It is an astronomically good system, even though it looks so Raggedy Ann from the outside. At some point I'll figure out how to get it to this far corner, maybe pull some more plants, but I'll be honest, I probably won't. There's other things to do. But pretty fun. And what I might try to do in the not so distant future, since this is the east side, the fig is already growing out through the window. I may just simply take this window off and remove this and leave it in such a way that we can harvest the figs by reaching in through this side window instead of having to walk through the middle. But there you go. It's about as roughshod of a basic design and implementation of a high tunnel as you can get away with, but with the permaculture vibe of routing water and nutrient passively through and also not interacting, not dominating what happens in the space. Some pretty wonderful things can happen.